Hey, Midwest Picker here. My name is Dave. These are Midwest Picker stories. I think this is episode 4, I'm pretty sure. These are my personal stories that are 100% true, nothing embellished, nothing made up. These are not fantastical stories, newsworthy, Bigfoot sightings, alien abduction, but they are bizarre, weird, strange, gross, true stories that I think people will enjoy. These stories kind of paint a picture of what life was like in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. So some of these involve dangerous activities. Please do not try this at home. And the law was much different back then. There was no Homeland Security. Police were a little more lax and relaxed back in the day. These stories are for entertainment purposes only. The names of people have been changed to protect their privacy. Let's get into the first story. This will probably be my most recent story. I think this happened around 2018, maybe 2019, not exactly sure. This also is probably one of my most bizarre stories that involves a little bit of science, and it's a pretty gross story. So if you have a weak stomach, viewer discretion is advised. I work from home now, but back when this happened, I worked in an office environment, and it was very common back then for someone to just randomly go out to lunch 2 or 3 days a week. And when they would do this, they would often walk the halls of this office building and say, "Hey, I'm going to lunch. Does anybody want to join me?" Pretty common. Local restaurants, buffets, whatever. Sometimes we would walk to a local hospital, go to the restaurants there, really good food. So on this day, I went out to lunch with 2 women I work with, and we would frequently go out to lunch. I'm going to call them Jill and Stacy. That's not their real names. But one of them came up to me and said, "Hey, we're going out to lunch. We're going to this Italian restaurant. They have a lunch buffet. Do you want to join us?" I said, "Sure." So we went outside, jumped in Stacy's car, and we took off for the restaurant. So we get to the restaurant, we pick out our booth, we sit down, the waitress comes right over, takes our drink orders, and then the waitress says, "Okay, you're free to go to the buffet." So we got up, we went to the buffet, grabbed our plates, and started scooping up food. Now, before I get into what actually happened, the purpose of the story, I do have to preface it with a little bit of science and talk to you about how our brains work. Our brains basically have 2 functions. We have conscious actions, and we have subconscious actions, and one of those is reflexes. The conscious actions are quite obvious. You see a dirty sock on the floor, you decide to pick it up, so you bend over, you reach your hand out, you grab the sock, and you pick it up. You're looking for the TV remote control, you're looking around, there it is, you get up, you walk over, you grab it. Everybody knows what conscious brain function or brain controls are because we do it all the time, every single day. The other more mysterious function of our brain is a little unconscious or subconscious. Part of it is called the autonomic nervous system, like digesting your food, or when your eyes dilate or constrict, those are reflexes. So we have functions like breathing, like I'm doing right now. I don't consciously think in my mind, I need to breathe in, I need to breathe out. It just happens, it's automatic. And then we have reflexes. Reflexes don't happen very often for us, but we kind of all know what they are. It's when our subconscious brain acts or reacts based on a stimulus. And we've all done this before. You've been to the doctor, he takes out that little rubber mallet, he taps your knee and your leg pops up. That's a reflex. You accidentally touch a hot stove and you withdraw your hand quickly without thinking about it. That's a reflex. What does not happen is touch a hot stove, look down at your hand burning, think to yourself, "I must withdraw my hand because my flesh is burning," and then consciously choose to pull your hand away. That does not happen because it's way too slow. That's why we have reflexes, because they're fast. They happen lightning quick before you can think about what's even happening. After you withdraw your hand from the hot stove, then you go, "Wow, that was weird," and you burned your hand. But reflexes aren't that weird because we've experienced them before. There are many reflexes that scientists and doctors and researchers have studied over the years, and they're very interesting. Even newborn babies have reflexes. There's the classic parachute reflex. There's the classic Babinski reflex. There's a lot of them, and some of them you might not be aware of. Most of these reflexes, like I said, happen lightning fast, and you don't realize what's happening until they're over because they only take a split second. The separation of the conscious mind and the unconscious mind has always fascinated me. Your brain can take over and tell you what it's going to do in the form of a reflex, and at the same time the brain can be easily fooled, such as hallucinations. The second real quick scientific fact or knowledge is the Heimlich Maneuver. This was invented a method to save someone who's choking. You basically stand behind them, you make a fist with one hand, and you grip that hand with your other hand. You put that fist against their diaphragm. I'm not going to do it right now, but you pull in and up, and kind of like a thrusting motion. That pushes and forces air out of the lungs, and it clears the obstruction in their airway. So if somebody's choking, you do that several times, 3, 4, 5 times, and you almost always there's enough air forced out to pop out that obstruction, and you can save their life. So let's get back to the story. We get our food, we go back to the booth. I'm on one side of the booth, Jill and Stacy are on the other side of the booth. Now we're all nurses, so we're really good at multitasking. So we're all eating, we're all looking at our phones, scrolling down, and we're also all having conversations without even looking at each other. We're all doing like 3 things at once. Now, Mrs. Midwest has told me for years that I have this terrible habit, which she's absolutely right. I have this terrible habit of eating too fast and not chewing my food well enough. I just hate hot food that's cold. If my food is hot, I want to eat it while it's hot. So I'm like a wolf, and I'm always scarfing my food down. I have learned over the years to slow down and do better, but she has warned me, you better be careful because you eat way too fast and you don't chew your food very good. So as the 3 of us are eating at this booth, me, Jill, and Stacy, they're not paying any attention to me, I'm not paying any attention to them, we're just paying attention to what we're doing, our phones and our food, and occasionally talking without looking up. I cut my Italian sausage, into some big chunks, and I got fried catfish and all kinds of stuff. It's a buffet, this food is great. And I take a piece of Italian sausage and I pop it in my mouth, and I'm chewing it and I swallow it, and I feel that familiar, oh man, it's stuck in my throat. So I think, no problem, this kind of sucks, but I'll just swallow really hard and force it down. So I swallow really hard and it doesn't go down. It's stuck. And I'm not able to breathe either. So now I'm officially choking. No problem. I got a big tall glass of Pepsi right here. I'll just wash it down with some Pepsi, I'm thinking to myself. So I take the Pepsi, take a big huge mouthful, and I go to swallow the Pepsi to force the sausage, and nothing. It does not move, and now my cheeks are full of Pepsi, and I have a piece of sausage blocking my airway. So this is the weird part of the story. So just as I'm thinking to myself, okay, now what am I going to do? I got the sausage stuck, I can't swallow it. I tried to wash it down with this Pepsi, and I'm thinking, okay, what's my next step? I wasn't panicked or anything, and I can't do it on camera, but what happened next is my upper body starts thrusting forward, and my abdomen was pressed against the edge of the table over and over and over. And this took like 5 to 6 seconds, and I'm just kind of like observing it happening. I'm like, what is going on? That's what I'm thinking in my mind. And so my body is doing this, just thrusting against the table. And all of a sudden, I feel a gush of air. So I turn my head to the side, and I kind of like spit out that big chunk of sausage and all that Pepsi all over the floor next to our booth. Now it kind of looked like to everybody else in the restaurant and to Jill and Stacy that I just puked and I threw up, but I didn't. I kind of like coughed up the sausage and the Pepsi, and it went all over the floor. After this happened, I sat back up, I wiped my mouth off, and I resumed eating like nothing had happened. I wasn't in a panic, I wasn't short of breath, I wasn't even coughing. I just started eating again. I was a little embarrassed, but I was hungry because I was there for lunch, and this was a flippin' sweet buffet, so I just keep eating. And I look up, and Jill and Stacy are staring at me. Their eyes are this big, frozen, and they're looking at me, and they're like, Dave, what the hell? What was that? Not only were they shocked at what they just saw, either spitting up, coughing up, or vomiting, but I just resumed eating like nothing had happened. I was not in any distress. but this was very freaky and very weird. The waitress wasn't too far away. She came over right away with a mop bucket, assuming I vomited all over the floor in her restaurant, and said, "Oh honey, that's okay, it happens all the time," and she started cleaning up the mess. I really like it when waitresses call me sugar and honey. That's just a little side note. I apologized over and over. She said, "No problem, don't worry about it." She quickly cleaned it up, dropped a wet floor sign, and just kind of walked away and went about her job. Now I knew I didn't throw up, but nobody else knew that. And the interesting part too is that Jill and Stacy assumed I was giving myself the Heimlich maneuver because I was choking. Jill just kind of smiled and said that was really weird. And they went back to eating and looking at their phones. And it was weird. It was really weird. But what they didn't know at the time is that I wasn't doing that on purpose. I wasn't doing it. That thrusting, it took seemed like an eternity, 4, 5, 6 seconds. I was not consciously doing that. I was an observer just like they were. So later, after it was all over, I just kind of assumed that what happened was a reflex action of my subconscious brain giving myself the Heimlich maneuver to save my life. Now what's weird about this, like I said earlier, reflexes are lightning quick. They happen super fast, like the knee jerk and your pupil constricting or whatever. This was a reflex of like a survival instinct that lasted 5, 6 seconds. It lasted so long. I was conscious of it happening while it was happening, not after the fact. So yeah, it was very weird. It was very weird to experience this Heimlich maneuver that my brain was doing. I don't know. When I share this story with other people, some people come up with other ideas. I've heard a few people say maybe it was your guardian angel that was ramming you into this table to perform the Heimlich maneuver. I don't know. I think it was a reflex action that I did not consciously decide to do or control. It's really, really weird. Some people think that I chose to do the Heimlich maneuver on myself. Now, when you do get training, whether it's nursing school or any kind of allied health education, you get what's called BLS, basic life support. So lots of people have had training in CPR, and some people get training also in the Heimlich maneuver. And I don't know if they all do it, but some of them train you and tell you, you can do it to yourself. If you're all alone and you're choking, you can use an office chair or some other object and lean against it with your abdomen, and you can do it to yourself. I've been educated in that years, 20 years ago. That's true, but I did not do this on purpose. That's what's really weird about this story. So my theory is this is a weird self-preservation survival instinct reflex that just happened. Now, the Heimlich maneuver can be done in 1 second, or it can take 10 or 20 seconds. You never know. But that's kind of my theory. So to this day, I chew my food 30 to 40 times. I take my time. I try not to talk while I'm eating. I go very slow. I've never had a choking incident like that since then. I still work with Jill and Stacy to this day, and to this day they still think I'm pretty weird, which is okay. Weird in a good way, of course. So put down in the comments, what do you think? What is your theory? Is there such a thing as a survival instinct reflex that would cause my brain to give me the Heimlich maneuver? Sometimes people also have instinct, like a sixth sense, like the hair in the back of your neck stands up when you're all alone at night because you feel like you're being watched. There's a lot of senses that our brain has that we just don't understand. Do you think it was my brain doing that? Do you think it was a guardian angel, or do you think it was something else? Put it down in the comments section. What is your theory? And for sure, if this has ever happened to you, or you've heard of this happening, share that. I'd love to hear that down in the comments. I'd love to find out and learn that I'm not the only one that's ever done this, but who knows, maybe I am the only one. Also put down in the comments, how many times do you chew your food each bite? And be honest, if it's not enough, if it's only 5 or 3 or you don't know, you better increase that to 30 chews per bite, or you might end up just like me. So that's the video, guys. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope it wasn't too gross. Give it a thumbs up if you liked it. If you know anybody that'd be interested in hearing this story for whatever reason, hit that share button and send it off to them. Or as a prank, if they have a weak stomach and they can't handle these kind of stories, hit that share button and send it off to them anyway. Thanks for watching.